to be down in sunny Jupiter. We're here at Home Depot. I want to thank them for hosting us. I want to recognize the guests we have, Kevin Guthrie, Florida Division of Emergency Management, Senator Gail Harrell, and then our representatives, Caruso, Gerwig, and Peggy Gossett-Seidman. I want to thank them for being here. We're here because we are about to enter hurricane season for 2025. And you'll see Kevin Guthrie come up here and provide some updates and some recommendations from the Division of Emergency Management. Now, I really hope this is the only time you see me and Kevin Guthrie this summer. That would be great. And, you know, we can pray for that. And hopefully that ends up happening. We do deserve a little bit of a break. I mean, normally you'll have times where you'll have a bunch. I mean, remember 2004-05 period, we had a bunch happen. Then we had 10 years where we didn't get one, and then now we've had 6 majors in 7 years, including 3 hurricanes, 2 major hurricanes last year in 2024, and then a 3rd, Hurricane Debbie. And so that's just the way historically I've seen that pattern. So hopefully we don't, but you can hope for that and you can pray for that, but you can't prepare to have no hurricanes. You got to prepare that it may be something that's going to impact us. And so we are here to talk about the need for individual Floridians to take proper precautions and to make sure that they have a disaster preparedness kit, that they have a response plan for themselves, their families, and their pets, and that if it comes to that, that you're in a situation where you're going to be able to do. I do think before we get into that, though, it is important to point out 2024, we had Hurricane Debbie hit in the Big Bend section of Florida on the West Coast. Then we had back-to-back Hurricane Helene and Hurricanes Milton. Both of those were major hurricanes. One of the things that we really work hard on in Florida is working with our utilities, not just the big private utilities like the Florida Power and Light, but also the municipalities, the rural co-ops, everything, to pre-stage as many resources as possible so that when the storm passes, people can work to have a rapid power restoration. And what I found just having studied these things, you know, as I was getting ready to become governor is, you know, when you have 2-3 weeks where people, not even in the eye of the storm, are just with no power, it causes huge problems for the whole recovery. And so what we've done with working with Kevin and in my office is, as soon as that storm goes, you will see these crews working to restore the power. So in Hurricane Debbie, you had everyone that could safely receive power, 100% restoration in 4 days. Helene and Milton, both with millions and millions of people without power at one point, and Milton got up to 4.2 million. You had 100% restoration of everyone that could receive power in 7 days. That has never been done quicker in any of these major hurricanes, and it does require us to help pre-stage. You house and feed all the linemen. You know, you'll see all these people flooding into Florida, 95, 75, I-10 coming in. We get the camp set up, and then boom. And I remember Hurricane Ian, which was 2022, Category 5, and it hit probably, I think it hit in like the afternoon, like on a Wednesday afternoon, and literally by the time all the remnants left, you had these trucks moving in, and they were there working, and you had places, I don't know if Home Depot was open very quick, but Publix and Wawa and all these places, I mean, they were open almost immediately. Those types of things make it easier to be able to assist with response and recovery efforts. And so I want to thank everybody that's been involved with that. The power restoration, it's interesting because you look at something like a Florida Power and Light, I mean, they're a massive, well-oiled machine. They've got a lot of technology. They put a lot of resources to bear. You've also seen Duke and things like Tampa Electric also be able to do that. And when I first became governor, it was, okay, we'd expect those to get it done, but then some of the other ones, maybe the cooperatives or whatever, it wasn't necessarily something that was going to be done as good. And I remember in Ian, you had some issues. Well, this more recent time, the co-ops were the first to get 100%. So they were there. You had some of these are rural outfits. Jupiter, obviously, you guys are going to be, you guys are all FPL, I'm assuming, and you understand that. But as you get into some other parts of Florida, you have that. All of those entities, whether it was the most well-financed, high-power utility or maybe one that wasn't as much, they all were ready and they all responded very quickly, and we really appreciate that. Now, through the Division of Emergency Management in the state of Florida, we were able to, during those storms, deliver and distribute more than 2.5 million shelf-stable meals, 1.5 million hot meals, 200,000 food boxes. We have provided shelter for over 80,000 survivors in 282 shelters across the state of Florida, distributed 5 million bottles of water, 170 truckloads of ice, 90,000 tarps, and over 1,500 generators. One of the things that we had to do, so, it's interesting, each storm will be different. Ian was a really big storm that hit Fort Myers and Sanibel in that area. But yet, you go back, I think we were on the ground there maybe the next day or a day and a half, and you had gas stations open. A lot of them had generators, and the Publix was doing generator stuff. So things just bounced back, and you had no fuel interruption because Ian didn't disable the ports on the west coast of Florida. Well, and then Helene, same thing. It had a lot of storm surge on the west coast of Florida, had a lot of problems, but it didn't necessarily interrupt the fuel. Now, we have fuel contracts and we do this. Well, Milton was a little bit different. It disabled Port Manatee and the Port of Tampa for a short period of time. That's where a lot of the fuel gets brought in to be able to service those gas stations in Tampa Bay and Sarasota and all those places. And so, we obviously work with the ports to help them get where they need to go, but because we have these fuel contracts, we set up all these gas stations ourselves around the Tampa Bay area, Sarasota, so people could go in and they could get gas. We didn't even charge anybody. You got free gas. Imagine that. People would wait in line for a long time for that too, because it's people just. You could do gas. It's interesting on what people are sensitive on price. If you're going down the street, if you have a gas station that is like 5 cents less than the one on you will have the line wait. People will wait to get that savings on gas. So they're very sensitive on gas prices, but we were able to do that, and so that was probably, I think we set it up and probably ran it 3 or 4 days, and then gas stations were coming online every day, and then the port got to 100%, and then everything was fine. But this is the type of stuff to be able to be very flexible to see what's going to happen. Another thing that we did was we did this debris task force. Now, you guys on the East Coast haven't had an impact of a major, probably since 2004, 2005 period during those seasons. Now, I know you did get some nasty tornadoes that got flung off some of these other ones, which were very devastating. But, when you have a big hurricane come through, it can leave a lot of debris. And people have, their homes may get saturated, and then they're cutting out the drywall. They're doing all this stuff. So this stuff adds up. And you'll go to some of these other places that have been hit by hurricanes in other states, and there'll just be debris just sitting there, and nobody really does. So what we said was, we really want to get this debris moving. Now, this is municipal governments have debris contracts, county governments have debris contracts. The state is not in the debris management business. That's just not how things go. You guys have your trash and all that stuff. Those are local services. But with Kevin's leadership, we've stressed you got to have these contracts in place. You got to have these folks ready to go. And that had even more importance when, after Helene, we saw Milton forming. Well, guess what? Milton was going to go on a similar track and impact a similar area than what Helene just did. So you had massive amounts of debris on the beaches in Pinellas County, in Bradenton, in Sarasota, all those areas. And it's like, okay, you're going to have a massive storm, then the debris is just going to get picked up and then projectiles everywhere. So we launched a debris initiative to be able to go in. So we paused, this is unprecedented, we paused all of our road work, everything our department, any dump truck under the control of the state of Florida was sent over to where Helene had hit, and they are doing debris 24/7. And we said it needed to be 24/7. One of the counties, Pinellas County, did not follow that executive order, and they locked up their landfill. Well, we sent in the cavalry to cut the locks, open the gate, and get that debris going, because that's what you needed to do. And we had citizens loading up their Ford F-150s, F-250s, you name it, bringing it in round the clock. And we were able to clear so much debris. And we also got from the Biden administration 100% reimbursement for all debris cleanup. So we told them, we created a debris dashboard where citizens could see how much their city or county was doing, because basically it was free to them. They were going to get reimbursed for 100% of the cost, so get it done. And I got to say, that's probably been the fastest debris pickup that we've ever seen after a major hurricane. And in fact, I'm down in Longboat Key. I was doing some charity event a few weeks ago, and you're pulling down there, you wouldn't have known a hurricane. They got hit by two. They got hit by Helene, and then they got hit by Milton. And you go through there, and it's just like bustling. Tourists everywhere. People are building whatever they're doing, and you didn't see like massive debris sitting everywhere. So I think that people really handled that in a good way, and I know it was really Kevin and his team, setting up these incentives. We worked with the federal government to get that reimbursement. I don't know if we're going to get reimbursement going forward, certainly not at that level from what we're seeing. But I think what happened with Milton was Helene happened, and then you had like Western North Carolina, all this stuff, and it was like, where's the federal government? Like, people were like, where's the president, all this stuff? And so I think the Biden administration was very sensitive on the heels of that. With Milton, they bent over backwards to be able to do, so we were able to get 100% of the debris cleanup, which we think is really, really good. So during that hurricane season, 2024, Florida Division of Emergency Management distributed $12 billion in recovery funding. That's the most that has ever been paid out within 6 years. And they've administered $244 million in preparedness grants. And so some of these things are more immediate. Some of these things are more some of the long-term stuff. I know Kevin will discuss some of that. Now, we are still responding. As we were still responding to Hurricane Helene, we were able to get things, and this is kind of how Florida does it. You looked at Western North Carolina after Helene, it was like no one was really there, right? And some people were saying FEMA needed to be there. Our view on that is we don't rely on FEMA for any of the preparation or response efforts. Now, they obviously have programs that the federal government has where if you're impacted, you can apply for individual assistance. Or if a municipality wants to get reimbursed, they can do if your certain triggers are met. And that obviously is fine, and people should do that. But in terms of getting people ready and prepared, and the messaging and the other things that go into that, that is really the state leading that with locals executing that. And we assume we're not going to get support from FEMA on all those things, and sure enough, that's how we've rolled. And so power restoration, the immediate distribution of supplies and meals. When we had to do the gas stations, we did that. All these different things is really being done by both the state of Florida and your local emergency management operators. And so we're proud to do that. We think it's important for the state. Obviously, when you're a peninsula sitting out in the middle of a tropical part of the world, you have no choice but to lean in on this stuff. And we gladly do that. So because of that, when Helene hit, You had a massive response effort. You stabilized the situation very quickly. There were hundreds and hundreds of rescues that were done, and you stabilized. And where it hit ground zero, there was not a single fatality up in Franklin or Taylor County. Not one fatality, which for a storm of that magnitude is pretty incredible. So that was good preparation, good coordination with the locals. You do that. So the dust settles 24 hours later, like we really don't have any more rescues to go. We're not getting any requests from the counties at that point beyond things that we would need. But in terms of that immediate rescue, we didn't have it. But then you saw Western North Carolina. You saw things where people didn't have support, people didn't have, and the reason why, first of all, we help other states help us. You know, anytime I do something, we sent people to help at the border, and I'll get me, what are you doing there? You're not for it. No, you know what? Why? One, it affects everybody, the border, but put that aside, when we have times, I've had Texas, I've had New York, I've had California send to Florida, and likewise we've sent, and we've offered help. On the California fires, we did that. We've helped with tornadoes in response. So that's just what we do. The states do that traditionally. It's not like it was anything out of the ordinary. But Western North Carolina, if any of you been to Western North Carolina in the summer times, you can't move without running into a Floridian. In fact, there's probably more people in Western North Carolina in the summer consider me their governor than the North Carolina governor, because that's just what it is. And I've been there and I've seen that. So I knew we were going to have some connections on the North Carolina. We would have helped anyways, but this is a really big deal. So we sent in Florida State Guard and other emergency response, and so they're in North Carolina conducting rescue operations. I have people come up to me to this day saying thanks for having the State Guard to do. Now, in some respects, I think it speaks highly about our guys that you have this in Western North Carolina, and then you have Florida people rescuing you. On the other hand, it's like, I know, it's a little bit weird that would be the case, but it is the case. And so we were able to do that, and we saved a lot of people. We were also able to bring Starlinks. We were able to bring water. We helped rebuild bridges there with our Florida Department of Transportation. And we also helped Tennessee and some of those remote regions. So it was really a good team effort, but that's just what we should do. So the 2024 season was challenging, but I think you can feel pride in the fact of how folks up and down the state of Florida responded to those very challenging circumstances, which brings us to this year. You just have to prepare and plan that we are going to have impacts. If you plan and it doesn't happen, you're never going to have great regrets on that. If you don't plan and it happens, you're going to be immediately saying, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? So we encourage, with hurricane season starting this weekend, we encourage all Florida residents and visitors to have a household plan that considers the needs of children, seniors, and pets in the family in particular. You can go to floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare if you want more information. Know your zone and know your home. It's important that residents know if they live in an evacuation zone, a low-lying flood-prone area, a mobile home, or an unsafe structure during hurricane season. It's also important for residents to know their home and its ability to withstand strong winds and heavy rain. This information will help residents better interpret orders from local officials. For more information and determine evacuation zones, visit floridadisaster.org/know, floridadisaster.org/know. In advance of the season, determine your options should you need to evacuate. Now, this is something that I think more and more Floridians have gone to appreciate it, because we had really serious evacuations from the west coast of Florida last year. You had, I'm not saying there was no traffic on it, but you did not have the nightmares that we've seen. Remember in Texas, people were stuck and they couldn't move at all and all that. Now, we opened an auxiliary lane. We did some stuff with that. But I think the reason was more of just, the message is this: if you're called upon to evacuate, you do not need to get in your car and go to some other state. You don't need to get in your car and go 300 miles. When you're evacuating, most of the time they're calling on you to evacuate is because you live in a low-lying area that would be dangerous if storm surge hit. So if you go to higher ground, most of the places that you would evacuate to in Florida are in structures that are hurricane-proof. Certainly any place that would be considered a shelter, virtually any hotel that would have been built in the last 20 years. So you don't need to make this a major excursion. You can evacuate, so like if you're here on the coast in Palm Beach County, chances are you just go inland. You hunker down, let the storm pass, and then you'd likely be able to go back to your home and hopefully things are fine, and if there's not, you can tend to that. If you go hundreds of miles away, look, I understand why some people want to do it. So if you can just get totally out of the path, you don't have to worry about power interruption, you don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff. Maybe you just want to relax for 4 or 5 days, and that's fine if that's what you want, but you do not have to do that. And it is not advisable in most situations that you do that. You will not have to worry about roads. You won't have to worry about this stuff if you just evacuate interior. So that is what we stress. We've also said, I was in Palm Beach County, we were at the Big Dog Ranch Animal Rescue, and we signed the bills against the animal cruelty with the dogs, especially in times of emergency. You know, we had Milton coming, and you had some guy, he's evacuating, and so he decides to chain his dog on a fence right off the interstate on I-75. Well, the storm was coming, water was rising, so it's about up to the dog's, right up to the dog's torso. And fortunately, we had a Florida Highway Patrol trooper that saw this and rescued the dog, but the dog would have died, had they done that. And I'm just thinking to myself, why would you chain a dog up to a fence like that in that situation? It just makes no sense, and you shouldn't have to do a law on this. You really shouldn't. But unfortunately, this is where we are. So we were able to do, but here's the thing. Sometimes when people evacuate, they feel like they have to leave their pets, that maybe they can't bring their pets. No. Every county has at least one pet-friendly shelter in the state of Florida. If you go to a shelter, you will be able to have an option to bring your household pets. We work with the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association so that when this happens, we usually get almost 100% of the hotels, when you're fleeing in a state of emergency, they will waive any pet restrictions, and you can bring your pets for that. So don't leave the pets behind, and certainly don't leave them out in harm's way. You have the ability to make sure that they're cared for, and that's something that's important. So there's options when it comes to evacuations, and so just keep that in mind, because think about it. We've had I remember, I wasn't governor, but you had Hurricane Irma. So all the people in Southeast Florida are evacuating, and a lot of them went to Tampa. But then the storm shifted, so then they're going back, and it's like, some of that is tough. So these options locally, all you need is higher ground and a safe structure. And the things that we would use, the schools, some of these other buildings, they're going to be able to withstand a major hurricane winds. And honestly, a lot of the buildings, even on the coast, the more recent stuff, they're built really well. You can tell. Ian, some of the newer buildings, you didn't even know that there had been a hurricane if you looked at it. But then ones that were older, they could be wiped off the map. But so we do pretty good on wind in Florida. It's just that storm surge, if you get caught up in that, there's really no way that you're going to be able to do. So just keep that in mind when it comes to evacuations. You don't need to get in and do this, make this a major joyride. Look, if you want to, maybe you have family in Georgia or Tennessee that you wanted to visit anyways, maybe this is an excuse to go do it. We're not going to sit here and tell you that you can't do that, but just don't feel that you have to do that, right? Now, when you have a disaster supply kit, we recommend 7 days worth of food and supplies for each of your family members, including pets. This is water, shelf-stable food, batteries, flashlights, reusable ice, pet items, toys, portable power banks, and more. We have the checklist at floridadisaster.org/kit. When you're doing that, I think if you look at every hurricane we've responded to, certainly since I've been governor, there hasn't been a place in Florida where you would not have had options for food or water inside of 7 days, right? But you never know. You just never know what's going to happen. So we're proud that we've been quick to respond, but just understand that's not really the norm. They used to never even set up the pods. Usually it was like, forget about it within 72 hours. Like no one would even think about doing a pod. We do the pods within 24 hours now. So we'll do that, but I think you still need to be prepared. And gasoline as well. Making sure that your tanks are full, making sure that you have some gas in a canister or something in your car. We saw 2 of our ports that got taken out briefly. That interrupted the flow of gasoline to the gas stations. You also have the fact that if power goes out, all these gas stations are supposed to have generators that can run, but the reality is not all of them have done that, and so you may not have every gas station immediately. So if you have that, and you say, listen, I know I'm going to have a period of a few days up to a week that I can handle, then all your worries will go down. If you are relying, chances are we're going to come there and help and get things, but if you don't, then that's just a reality. I'm also encouraging residents to have multiple ways to receive weather alerts and listen to all orders from local officials. You are going to be, so say we don't order anyone to be evacuated. That's done at the local level, and partially it's because they're familiar with all the different areas of their city or county. It's also the fact that if they ever did a mandatory, they're the ones responsible for putting that into effect. I mean, I could sit here and issue an edict and say, close the bridge, but then sheriff doesn't have to do that. The police don't have to do that. But if it's done at the county level, then they say, okay, this bridge is closed to the beach traffic. We want to do this. And I'm not even saying that they should be doing or not doing on these things, but the reality is it's a bottom-up process. So listen to those local officials, understand where you are, understand what they would do. We in the state will amplify those messages. If Kevin has a belief that certain areas that it makes sense to evacuate and the locals are not, he'll have conversations to try to get to where we think is good. But when you're doing evacuations, it's not an exact science. These weather forecasts can shift. You do not want to be in a situation where you're just telling everyone in the state to evacuate. Now there's some Florida residents that wouldn't mind to have a lot of, because they'd have less traffic and a little bit more room, and so it's like, oh, these people always come in here. But you can't just do that, right? So you've got to figure out, and you got to look at the forecast. And sometimes the forecasts are excellent, sometimes they can bop around a little bit, but you don't want to tell people to evacuate if there's not a high chance that there's going to be significant impacts. On the other hand, you don't want to act like nothing is going to happen if you end up getting some major storm surge. So they have to weigh that. They understand it's disruptive to people's lives, it's disruptive to businesses and the economy, and so they're working hard to come to. But Kevin is not, if there's something that was bearing down on a part of Florida and the local emergency responders are somehow asleep at the switch, which I don't think will happen in Florida, but if it was, he would get out there and say, okay, let's go, guys. We got to get going, and we'll get them to where they need to be. Now, we are a law and order state. I probably don't need to remind people of that, but we are. If we do have a storm, the last thing you want to do is to try to take advantage of that situation. You do not loot. You do not violate people's private property. We have very strong laws in Florida about defending your home, and all I would say is if you're thinking about committing any of these bad acts, I would think again. You never know what's on the other side of that door in a Second Amendment state. Now, our Florida State Guard is will be on standby to assist state and local authorities. We're proud of what we've been able to do with our own State Guard. We used to have State Guard up until after World War II. It kind of got discontinued, and we rely on National Guard. Our National Guard is great, don't get me wrong, but ultimately the National Guard is administratively controlled by the federal government. If they want to grab these people and send them to Afghanistan, the feds can do that. Our State Guard there's no control with the federal government over our State Guard. So they respond to Florida issues on behalf of Floridians. And I think that that's something that's been really, really good. We've been able to recruit, huge numbers of very talented people. We have the search and rescue. We've got a special missions unit. They're the ones going into this rocky terrain and rescuing people. So it's been a huge success, and I'm glad that they're on watching us. Now, one of the ways we encourage Floridians to prepare for the storm season is to make needed repairs to their homes and, where possible, strengthen their homes against storm conditions well ahead of time. We restarted a program called My Safe Florida Home a few years ago, and the idea was provide matching grants for homeowners to be able to make improvements, one that protects better against the storm, but it also entitled them to reduction in insurance rates, which obviously, we've seen a lot of increase over that period of time in particular. It's been stabilized the last year and a half, and hopefully that continues. If we don't get any storms, that'll be really good for that. But we wanted to do that, and a lot of people used it. Now, we did it last year's budget. We put a lot of money into it, but you had a lot of people sign up for it. So now we've got a lot of people on the waiting list. And they've been on the waiting list since last summer. And so I told the legislature in January we did a special session. Now, part of it was this immigration enforcement, and we're leading the country by a mile on that. But I said replenish the My Safe Florida Home, at least to get the people on the wait list who were already approved for repairs. Let them do it and make the repairs so that all this will be done in advance of this hurricane season. Well, that was not something that advice was not heeded. So you had view, I think mainly by the Speaker of the House, that those folks on the waiting list, that they should just toil there and not get any support. It'd be one thing if they were just all of a sudden asking for a grant out of the blue, out of thin air. That's not what they were doing. They were told to apply for this. The program ran out of money. It needed to be replenished. They've been waiting for this, and it was a huge missed opportunity to be able to replenish that so that they could have gotten these repairs done in time for this hurricane season. Now, I still think that we want to be able to do that. I think it's really important that people, particularly that have been waiting on this, are able to get it. It has proven to be effective. It has helped homes withstand events, and it has helped them moderate what they're being charged on insurance premiums. So hopefully, we're here. It's almost, we usually do the hurricane tax preparedness holidays, so the first 2 weeks of hurricane season, and then we do 2 weeks at kind of the height of hurricane season. But they haven't even done the budget yet, so we don't have any of the tax holidays in place in the state of Florida. I think you need 2 weeks early so that you can get all the supplies you need tax-free. So we're going to make sure one way or another there's going to be hurricane preparedness tax holiday. And I know it's people at Home Depot, they flood Home Depot, they flood all these places, and they get their stuff tax-free. And you can spend, and it's not just disaster, people have other needs around their homes. I mean, you can spend a lot of money in Home Depot, and you save a lot on tax when you do it during these tax holidays. So we want to do it. Now, as part of My Safe Florida Home, we allow residents to receive free wind mitigation home inspections, and ensures they can make the necessary fixes before hurricane season gets underway. I recently signed Florida House Bill 715 earlier this month that makes it easier for Florida homeowners to do these repairs. Right now, Florida law allows licensed roofing contractors to install, repair, maintain, alter, or extend roofing systems, but restricts them from performing major structural work beyond roofing unless they hold additional licenses. Well, this bill expands the scope of work that roofing contractors can do to include roof-to-wall connections for structures with wood roof decking. Roof-to-wall connections are the structural link between the building's roof and its walls, sometimes called hurricane straps. These are a critical aspect of wind mitigation and are often eligible features for discounts on home insurance premiums. So by expanding the list of authorized inspectors and installers to include roofing contractors, we're providing a greater opportunity for consumers to have these wind mitigation devices installed. We also recently signed legislation which hasn't been necessary while I was governor, but in state of emergencies, you would occasionally have local governments use that to unilaterally say you can't purchase firearms. What does that have to do? Honestly, if a storm's coming, some people may want to purchase firearms to be able to protect themselves from looters. And so I would always overrule that with executive action, but for whatever reason, they were under the impression that they had the ability to do that. So the bill that I signed ends that. It protects Florida's Second Amendment rights from being, quote, suspended during declared emergencies. And again, as long as I was here, we would overrule that. But the reality is who knows what happens in the future, and we want to make sure that we're protecting our citizens' Second Amendment rights. So that is also in the books. So all that being said, we're starting hurricane season. I'd urge you to prepare. Now the reality is hurricane season goes from June through November, right? Now if you look at when these storms come, major hurricanes are rare in June and July. As we get into mid-August through probably mid-November or mid-October, that's really the peak. I'd say the end of September, last 2 weeks of September, first week of October is like the real peak. We've had big ones in August. Obviously, you can still have them after the first week of October. You can have them in June, but the reality is there's kind of a rhythm to this, so you do have time. I do anticipate that there will be disaster preparedness tax holidays that will be enacted soon. So obviously, it's got to be enacted this month because you got to get a budget done by the end of the month. So hopefully we'll be able to get that done, and then you'll be able to save money on that. But let's prepare as if we're going to have major events. And then let's hope that we get a respite this year, and if we do, that'll be great for the people of Florida, it'll be great for the state, it'll be great for a lot of different things. But we can't just sit there and hope for the best and go into hurricane season ill-prepared. So we've been preparing ever since the end of last cycle. We've been preparing for this hurricane season at the state level. You guys have some of the best local emergency response folks anywhere in the country. I mean, we have the best in the country. I mean, for obvious reasons. So feel comforted in that, but just understand those first 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, no one's going to have more significant impact on how you respond to the storm than what you personally do to prepare for yourself, your family members, your pets, and anyone else that needs assistance. Okay, Kevin Guthrie, come on up.
Thank you, Governor, for your leadership and always supporting the Division of Emergency Management. And yes, I do hope this is the one and only time this year that we get to see each other. Now is the time to be prepared and informed. With the 2024 season behind us, we can reflect on this year's accomplishments. The Governor has done that and the lessons learned. And we work together as we move into this hurricane season. Florida is a national leader in the field of emergency management, but it is our mission each and every hurricane season, each and every storm, that we continue to improve to better serve our Floridians. When two major hurricanes made landfall within weeks of each other, our preparedness efforts allowed for record-breaking state response and recovery efforts. This hurricane season has been predicted to be similarly active. And the division has already begun pre-staging response resources throughout the state of Florida. We're training personnel, and we're establishing contingency plans to ensure that Florida remains prepared. Let me share some of those statistics with you. We already have, even though we talked about all of the stuff that the governor said we put out in the past, we've already replenished 3.5 million gallons of water, 3.7 million shelf-stable mills, 1.4 million tarps, 415,000 linear feet of tiger dams. New Florida Central Operations Coordination Office, a new warehouse in Auburndale, Florida. 52 disaster response contracts are already in place and ready to assist for this season. 20 logistical staging areas have already been pre-identified with memorandums of understanding with each of those. A recent addition this year is going to be the launch of our Beacon, which is the Broadcast Emergency Alert and Communications Operation Network. So Beacon is revolutionizing local public safety communication, ensuring every resident receives timely, accurate, actionable, and official emergency information. Now you may say, how is this different than our National Weather Service radio? It is not different. It is in addition to the National Weather Service radios. We want everybody to have a way to receive alerts. You should have a weather radio. You should have the alert setting on your phone set to receive alerts. But now in addition, we have Beacon. This is an official way for us to give out information from the governor, from myself, from local elected officials, utilizing generative AI to put out text messages to voice radio in each and every market throughout the state of Florida. Today, we launched for the South Florida market. I'm happy to announce that WLRN FM HD3, HD Channel 3, will be the Southeast Florida's radio station for Beacon. Throughout the other areas, we have Gainesville and Ocala, at WUFT, Pensacola and Destin at UWF, and many, many other stations coming online. If we don't have a station in your area, you can always download the Beacon app, and then you have 24/7, 365 single source official information straight from your local officials, your state officials, and federal officials if needed. Every resident is, in every Florida county can access that, and we look forward to our continued relationship with Beacon. In order to prepare for whatever is blown our way this season, Floridians should follow 5 simple steps to be ready. First, we want you to know your home and know your zone. Generically, if your house was built before 2004, then it is not up to the Florida Building Code. Now, Southeast Florida, if you get closer to Miami-Dade's building code went into effect around 1996. So those within this market may actually be up to the Florida Building Code. But generically across the state of Florida, 2004. So know what your house was built. That's what we mean by know your home. Can it withstand hurricane force winds? Next, you want to know your zone. That is all about water. All about the storm surge. So what we're looking for there is, are you in an evacuation zone for storm surge? Storm surge evacuation zones are different than your flood zones. And yes, I don't know why, but at some federal level they decided that we were going to make evacuation zone A and AE, and oh yeah, by the way, we have evacuation zones for hurricanes of A and E. So it gets very, very confusing, but know the difference between those things. After you know your home, you know your zone, the next thing is to make a plan. Make a plan for every member of your family. Make a plan for your extended family. My wife is a primary caregiver for her mother and father. We have to take those things into consideration. Pets, and so on. So please make sure you make a plan. Build a disaster supply kit based on your plan. That's all about getting ready. So think about this as ready, set, go. So those 3 things are all in the ready column. Once you're there, now you're ready to get set. What do? Now's the time of year, and we were very, very good at this last year, Governor, on getting the message out about keep your electric vehicles and your gas tanks halfway full. When it gets to the halfway mark, that is the new empty. Go ahead and fill it back up. We saw much less of a run on gas stations in last year's hurricane season when we started the halfway full, halfway there campaign than the previous season with Hurricane Ian. So again, this time of year, gets to halfway, fill it up. You are ready to go. That's get set. The next phase is go. Governor talked about it, I'll reiterate it. Tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. Generically, don't quote me on this, media, but generically speaking, please, all you got to do is get to the other side of the interstate system. If you're coastal, whether you're on the west coast or the east coast, get to the other side of the interstate. Whether that's the Turnpike, 95, et cetera. There's some, as you get close to like Broward County down there, right around the county line, you've got to southern county line, you got to maybe move a little bit further, maybe it's a mile further inland, but generically speaking, get to the other side of the interstate, as the governor said, find a hotel, find a shelter, find something that is built after 2004, and that is your go. So evacuate tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. So again, ready, set, go, those 5 steps to get you ready for hurricane season. This is the time to do it. You see a lot of things up here for your kit. Make sure you're getting those things now. We are excited, the governor, myself, the legislature are working to get some new products on the tax-free holiday when the budget gets signed. Some of those are on display here today. For the first time ever, we now have, how many of you have a sliding glass door inside of the state of Florida? I think everybody's hand in this room should go up, right? There is now a sliding glass door flood control product that's going to be sold here at the Home Depot stores, and it's on display over here for you guys to see. We are excited about this product because we think we're going to cut the damage. We did this study with the Florida International University's Well and Wind, so that's an investment that the legislature makes into the Florida International University. But we believe, based on the statistics that FIU have given us, that we're going to see a 99% reduction in water coming in through sliding glass doors. That is going to cut damages down significantly.
How much is that?
That's a good question, sir. Does somebody can scan that item real quick for us? So, but that is a great product this year that we're trying to get onto the tax-free, and I'm 99% sure we're going to get there. But that is a great product this year for us, and we'll get to $585 to protect wind-driven rain coming in through your sliding glass doors, and that is a
save you $40 in tax if right? But we have had people in the past who were maybe new to hurricanes who would run the generator, and then unfortunately you'd see fatalities. That we didn't have any reported last year. I don't think we had any in Ian either.
So, but that's just something to be important. So like, yeah, great to have a generator. It can help you get through a couple days without power. Clearly, in the summer in Florida, to be able to have things working is a big deal. We understand that, and we encourage you to do whatever you need to do to make things, to mitigate inconvenience. But just do not run that inside your house or inside. Make sure the exhaust is outside. Gail?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much to the governor for coming and really making a big deal of this. Thank you so much, Governor. You know, it's delightful to be here at Home Depot, and guess where we're standing? Right in front of the generators, right? So this is called preparedness. I got my generator last year during the tax holiday. Hopefully we have that in statute very soon. But I just want to give you a little idea about what is happening in Florida and where we are. We are truly the #1 state when it comes to our preparedness. We may be #2, but we are overall #1. And that's because of the leadership we have in the state of Florida. It's also because of the lessons learned. We have Hurricane Central. So we have lots of lessons we've learned way back to Andrew, all the way through. And what the legislature has done every single time we have a hurricane is we then do the postmortem. And we say, what can we do better? And we have learned all along the way. And this is my 23rd session in the Florida legislature, and I've been very much a part of that as we have changed our statutes, changed our requirements. And we always keep in mind those 4 essentials. Preparation, #1, and we've just talked a lot about that. And you all at Home Depot in particular are very much a part of that. And getting people ready for it, whether it's the generators, and this, I'm going to buy one of those, more than one, and getting ready for it. But then also you have to look at our response. What has Florida done in response? And we are the best at response. We have the preparation, but then when it happens, you have to respond. And that is amazing. What we do in Florida, whether it's through our state guard, getting people out there, whether it is getting the gasoline to where it needs to be, or whether it is just making sure you get the debris out of the way. Response is key, but that takes a lot of planning. And what we have learned along the way is every time we have a hurricane, the legislature comes back in and sets up new processes and new laws that say how to do that response. Then you go into that recovery stage. So recovery is where you all play a part, and thank you. And we want to make sure that you are there to do that, and that people also have done the preparation. But you also have to then make sure that the recovery is there. And we want to empower you all as the major industry that helps in that recovery. And that has been a major effort on the part of the state of Florida to empower that. Then we come to mitigation, okay? And we talked about the various changes we've made in our building code over the years. And every time we have a hurricane, we look and see what else needs to be done to help mitigate the effect of these hurricanes. And certainly the building code changes have been major. In fact, I had to put a new roof on my house because of that. I lost my mitigation credits. And, legislation I voted for, it cost me a whole lot of money. But at the end of the day, it has made my house much, much stronger. And one of the most important things we have done is this My Safe Florida Home. So hopefully we get the money in that, Governor. Hopefully very, very soon, please. And that we have that in place. Because at the end of the day, mitigation makes a difference. Some of the examples I can tell you we have long term is, when you could not get gas. We talked about gas earlier. We then came back and required that any gas station with over 16 pumps had to have a generator so that they could actually pump the gas. Of course, you have to have the gas to pump it, but in most situations it was because there was no electricity. I remember way back in Francis, and this is again how we have mitigated things along the way. In Francis, I was without electricity for 13 days. 3 weeks later, we all live here on the East Coast, we remember Francis and Jean. 3 weeks later, Jean came through. So I was out of electricity for 13 days. A week and a day later, Jean comes through. I didn't have electricity for 9 days. So and I still had to pay my bill. A whole month I had minimal electricity. However, you look at what is happening today and what our power companies have done to mitigate those effects has been incredible. With all the storms that we have had come through, with the tornadoes that actually hit our area, I really have not been without electricity more than maybe 6 to 10 hours. So the difference is huge where we have come in the last 20 years because of the efforts we've put into mitigation. And that takes a coordinated effort of our state and our local governments working together. Our state EOC is an example for the entire country, but every single county has to have, and by statute, must have a local emergency operations center. And the communication that takes place between our local and our state is key to making sure that we have that system in place that really helps us recover as quickly as possible. So we are here as your state legislators. When you have ideas, when you think something's not working, please reach out to us. We are there. We'll be looking every single year post-hurricane season as to what we can do to empower the entire state of Florida to be prepared, to really respond, to recover, and then put in place those mitigation elements that we really need in order so that we can become and stay the great state of Florida. So thank you very much for being here.
Well, season's upon us, so you have time, and it is exciting to see. I mean, I remember Kevin talking to me about the things for the sliding glass doors. I mean, if you think about it, if that's 99% effective and you drop $600 on it, the amount of damage that potentially can prevent, because really, I mean, some homes can get just roofs blown off, and that's serious. But I would say the vast majority of the damage that we've had in our more recent hurricanes, just water rising, getting into people's homes, and then you've got a muck and gut. You got to replace the carpet, replace the floor, whatever you have to do, and that's just like, if you can avoid having to do that, I mean, that is a huge thing. That's worth its weight in gold. So prepare. There is going to be, one way or another, we are going to get you tax-free disaster preparedness. So you are going to have a time to buy all this stuff tax-free. It should have started tomorrow, as should have our Second Amendment tax holiday. I mean, that should have started on Memorial Day. We also are working on a marine, no tax on marine fuel over the summer, which I know is important to a lot of people that are out doing that. And this all just needs to get done. So we'll make sure it does one way or another. Okay, you got any questions? Not in disaster. So when we did that, those were two discrete instances. One was on the Biden infrastructure. There were requirements that we basically change our policies to do things that were effectively part of the left-wing agenda, such as monitoring people's tailpipe emissions in the state of Florida. We are not going to do that.